Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Sunday, St. Patrick's Day Sunday too. 10-year anniversary of Martin Brodeur becoming the all-time wins leader. It's a good day, Beer Baron. It's a good day.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is.
Oh
my gosh. Good day. Not great in the Devils win-loss column today, but, you know, getting shut out by the Avalanche 3-0.
Yeah,
what are you gonna
agreed.
do?
Agreed. However, it is it's a big day in Devils history, so I'm trying to look at that right now and be on the positive.
There you go. It's also the day that Patrick Elias became the Devils' all-time points leader. So
that is true as well. That is true as well. However, I believe Brodeur's record kind of outshines it a little bit.
Just a tiny bit.
Just slightly. Not that we don't
feel bad. You kind of feel bad.
Yeah, right. Not that we don't love Elias and his record and all that stuff, but being the all-time win leader in the NHL and pretty solidly up there. Someone will break it, unfortunately, because of the shootout. But it's going to take a while to get to that point. But it's definitely a breakable record. Brodeur played had all those wins in the era of the tie, or I shouldn't say all of them, but he had quite a few of them in the era of the tie. So,
and you got to think he lost a full season to a lockout in '94, or not '94.
Yep. Not 94. Sorry, well, he lost half a season in 95. He lost a full
season in 95. 2004, he lost a full season.
Yep. And then he had that injury too, which knocked him out for quite a while.
Yeah, so he lost at least 2.5 seasons because due to injury, due to lockout. So and lost that, and Sam just wrote lost another half a season in 2012 and 2013. So yeah, he lost almost 2 full seasons, or maybe even more than 2 full seasons. You got to think about that's at least another, you want to say 40 plus wins.
I was going to say somewhere between that and 80.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Probably in the neighborhood of, actually, yeah, I would venture a guess in the neighborhood of, between 60 and 80.
So he could have been well into 700s.
Oh, totally. And again, a lot of that was in the era of the ties. So think of what all those ties could have been if there was a shootout. Could have been many more. And I'd have to venture a guess his shutouts, total shutouts would probably be at least plus. Oh man, over 2.5 seasons, at least plus 10 to 15, maybe even 20.
Yeah.
You
It's
got to
just crazy
assume
to think about it. How durable he was, like how, everybody credits the team, and of course you credit the team because the defense was so good when he played, but at the same time, just being able to put up consistent numbers year after year after year, without top line centers and top line scoring and all these other things around him, he was still able to. And I'm saying top line. Keep in mind, what I'm trying to say is like they didn't have like giant superstars in the team that were driving the offense and really winning games for the Devils. It was just the fundamentals, and it was like a team.
it was you knew your role, you played your role. If you didn't play that role, you left. Or you were shown the door. That's the way that they were. And it's really not easy to. It's not the easiest game to play when you're only getting, 15 to 20 shots. If you're not getting a lot of work in overtime, it's over the course of a game. It's sometimes hard to get into a rhythm. And you can kind of get lulled into a sleep. So everyone always says, "Oh, he wouldn't have been as good." He was only good because of his team, only good because of his team. But he was the right goalie at the right time that was going to be able to play in that system to where he would only face 15 shots a game, 20 shots a game. Scatter that over 3 periods. You're looking maybe 7 shots a period. Okay, so we'll round up to 21 to make it even. That's not a whole lot of work, and it's not always the easiest game to play when you're not getting shelled with shots. So. He was the right guy for the right time. That was for sure. And he was durable. And a lot of that, had to lead to his durability because he wasn't having to constantly be under a huge, workload every single game, day in, day out. So
just to kind of jump back into the present and not to step away from that because, I would love to get back into that in a little bit, but just to kind of pick your brain a little bit. So, the Devils have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games left. So they have 9 games left. Washington, Boston, Arizona, Buffalo, Detroit, St. Louis, the Rangers, Carolina, and Florida. How many of those do you think Mackenzie Blackwood plays? Just off the cuff, do you think they split it 50-50? Or obviously, like as close to 50-50 as they can, 5 and 4, or do they lean on him more?
I'm going to say probably close to a 50-50 split. That's without looking at the schedule and looking at possible back-to-backs. You're bringing Snyder back in, so he's going to be able to get that time to work back in. You want to see what Blackwood can offer. I would say probably a 50-50 split. It also wouldn't shock me too if they gave maybe like a 60-40 split, or get Corey a lot more work. Or a little bit more work than Blackwood, but I think we'll see these guys pretty equally for the remainder of the season. Looking at it now, we have one set back. We have one back-to-back. Yep.
But then if you look at it, it goes. You have that back-to-back. So you have Detroit, and then you have St. Louis on back-to-back nights. That's Friday and Saturday, and then you have a quick turnaround, and you play the Rangers on Monday. Yeah. So you have, 3 games in a span of 4 days, that's a lot. So I don't know. It's, at this point, I hate to say this, but just, I would prefer to see them play Blackwood a little bit more just to see
what we have.
He can handle, see what you have and see if he can handle like a bigger workload, in NHL regards. I don't know. It's just like this season is just kind of tailspun. Like it's just crazy. They lost 7 games in a row, and that last one that they lost where they gave up 9 goals to Calgary.
Oh, that was rough.
That was, I mean, they were winning that game, and then it was just like the wheels didn't just fall off; they like exploded off, and then it was just. I mean, they won two games back to back right after that, and then of course they lose today. But I'm just like such at a loss of words for a lot of this because there's so many people that are, bitching and complaining because they're like, oh, they're winning games and they shouldn't because they're going to screw up their draft position now. And it's like, listen, dude, you heard Grant Marshall say it a few times on our podcast. They don't tank. They don't The players don't physically tank.
No, they don't. And you have a lot of you basically, and I know everyone's been joking that the Binghamton Devils have been playing an AHL schedule, but you know what? We've been very youth heavy over the last couple weeks, and these guys are playing for jobs, and we are getting to see what we have in the system, which I think is fantastic. This is the best way you're going to see who's ready, who's not, or at least who has a chance of being ready for next season. Mm-hmm. And you know, these guys are not going to tank. On top of it, you have, you know, a decent enough chance to get that top pick if you finish 5th versus 1st. You know, we could finish dead last.
Are like
Slight. We could finish dead last and get the 5th overall pick. There's no guarantee. So at this point, I mean, looking at the standings now, you know, we're solidly in the bottom 5.
Fourth, yeah, we're in that bottom 5 for sure.
Yeah,
and Detroit's only 3 points behind us. LA is only, I don't know, 5 points behind us.
LA is 5, yeah, and then the worst of the worst is Ottawa with I think 56, if I can see it right.
Yeah, it's 56, which is crazy because they don't even get that pick. How much does that suck?
No.
Imagine being a Senators fan and just watching your team like tank throughout the season, and you don't even get the satisfaction of having that top overall pick. You know, it's going to Colorado, so it could be worse. We could be Ottawa Senator fans. So
no. It could be worse because worst in leagues around here get the top prospect. The worst 3 in a lot of other leagues around the world get relegated to the next division down in the 2nd division. Yeah. So it could be worse. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if they had that in the NHL where they would? The bottom 3, which currently would be Ottawa, LA, and Detroit, get bumped down to the AHL.
That'd be crazy.
That would be wild as anything. And so it could be worse. We could be bumped down to the AHL, and at that point, you'd be fighting just to be in that number, you know, that number 28 spot that we currently hold.
Yeah. There's a great, not to get off subject at all, but there's a great documentary on Netflix called Losers, and it's about like all these different stories of athletes who have, you know, found ways to lose or whatever in their stories. And there's one about this, it's about a soccer team that was like on the brink of being completely relegated out, or I forget what it's called, completely dropped out basically of everything.
Yeah, relegated. Yeah, relegation.
Yeah, so they were on the brink of it, but I'm not going to give it away. You got to watch it. It's worth it's worth to watch. It's quick too. It's only like 26 minutes. It's called Losers.
What was the team? Do you remember what the team name was or no?
Not off the top of my head. It was like a completely obscure team.
All right, I'll check it out.
Super small town. Yeah, it's really funny.
All right, cool. I'll check it out.
But yeah, back to what we were talking about before. I mean, it's just one of those things. You know, I know that the name of the show is Karlsson, Hughes, and or Kaako or however you say his name.
We haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, Kaako. If he's on the team, I'll know how to say his name.
Oh, absolutely. If he's not, we're gonna really not care.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys are putting up monster numbers in their respective divisions and where they're at. I honestly, at this point, I'd have to like really sit down and go over the numbers and go over just, you know, the stats of these guys and just the pedigree and everything else. Brian said, "Is that team owned by Josh Harris?" No, you would think so, though. But you know, between the two of them, I wouldn't mind having either or. You know, it's like honestly, you have Hughes who has a really great pedigree, and he's, you know, this kid is an American, and he just broke the points record for the U.S. U18 team, and then I think Kaako just broke a record in his league for the most goals scored by a rookie. So I mean, they're both doing amazing things. They're both way ahead of the curve. So what the hell? Either or. That would be my answer to that question.
Yeah, you know, I really don't think it's. I think it's more worth the time to do all that research and see who's better when we find out our draft order.
Exactly, because I don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah, you know, we may not even get 1 or 2. We may get 5. We may go on a run and get 6 or 7, and then at that point we'll have to look, you know, much further out than just the top 2. So, I'm really not going to be concerning myself with, who we could possibly get until we find out when we're going to pick. Both those players are fantastic. They would be fantastic, but at the same time, if we're not going to be in the top two, we're not going to get them. Well, bottom two, I guess.
And honestly, when Nick comes on, excuse me, I guess those are the three main questions that we can ask him. What is Erik Karlsson's, is he leaning towards re-signing with San Jose? They didn't sign him to an extension, so that would make me think that he is, kind of hit the open market and try to get the best deal that he possibly can get. What do we have in New Jersey that could lure him here besides Taylor Hall? And that's it. A couple other things. The proximity to New York City without having to deal with New York City crap. I don't know. So I don't know. And then just kind of comparing those two players. So it'd be interesting to get his take.
Yeah. No, it'll definitely be interesting. And it's not that I don't care about either of those two players. It's like you said, I just don't want to get my hopes up, just like you don't. And say, hey, we're gonna... But at the same time, too, whoever we get has to have needs to be very much like Nico mentally, coming into a team that is not doing so great and has to be able to Rob Clemos says we have great pizza. So there's that. That's true, Rob. We do have great pizza here. But people from New York would argue theirs is better. It's all the same, though.
Hey, Liam, we could turn it around real quick. Don't you know that? Come on. We're in last place now. That's not next year.
No, we could turn around, but and I hope we do turn this around. But whoever we draft has to know that they're going to come into, a project, and they have to be able to handle a project. I know there's rumblings in Edmonton about, some of those players are getting tired of the, project that's been going on there forever. Which is still wild to me that team has so much talent and can't put anything together. We think we have it bad. They're worse.
It's just
they have all that talent and nothing.
That's such a true statement. Imagine having all that, quote unquote talent, and then you can't seem to win. You have one of the best players in the NHL, and you just can't seem to win. They're on the cusp right now. I think because the West is not really as strong as it normally is. So they're on the cusp. I don't know. I'd have to check the standings to see if they have a possibility of getting in. But honestly, they should be way better than they actually are. And to be honest, I'm just going back. Brian actually asked us, would you trade a top 5 pick for a restricted D-man free agent knowing you can re-sign him or knowing you could sign him? Depending on who it is, depending on how young they are, and depending on, I know there's a lot of things that you could say, injury history, all that kind of crap. Would I trade a top 5 for an established? Hell yeah. I would definitely trade. I wouldn't trade a 1, a 2, or a 3, but I would trade a 5 for an established player because you're getting somebody that you already know is proven, and especially a defenseman where it takes a couple of years for them to develop and bring along. I would definitely do that. I don't know about you, but I would.
Yeah, I would, knowing that, all those things that you just mentioned, age, injury history, are we guaranteed to re-sign? And not only are we guaranteed to re-sign, are we guaranteed to re-sign at a team-friendly price? Someone that's not going to break our bank just to have, but also someone that's established and will fit with the system. Yeah, I would do it. Because we definitely do need help on D. But devil's advocate, you got to look at who might be available that you could be missing out on. So there's always a flip side to everything. I would love to have that experienced defenseman, but, if you're also looking at, a possible player that'll be a game changer for years to come, based on age too, it's 1, 2, and 3 definitely wouldn't trade. 5 and up, yeah, especially depending on the draft. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
So Liam asked us, we only talk about Hall, but are we certain that Vatanen is going to be back beyond next year? That's a good question. It's from everything that we've heard or that I've heard, it sounds like he's he's kind of not a lock to come back or not a lock to re-sign when it's his time to get to that point. But he is enjoying himself here. He is enjoying being one of the top defensemen. Injuries aside, if he's healthy, he helps the team point blank.
Totally.
So, I mean, I would love to have him back, but that's, everything is unknown. You could have a player sit there and tell you, like, I love it here. I'm never going to move. I'm never going to do that. And then they go and sign in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, it sounded like a familiar script from an old play that we heard before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Obviously there is an absolute chance that we bring him back. There's also an absolute chance that he goes too, which, it's just the nature of the game and the business. It would be nice to have him. Be nice to build a core around him. But if he doesn't want to stay and he's not going to sign, I don't want someone to sign just to sign and not be happy here as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be re-signing players for the sake of just doing it.
So Eric was saying, Eric was saying the only goal this year is now to be 1 point up on the Rangers or the Rangenettes when 82 is in the books. Might cost us a few percentage points in the draft. But as we know, for the Devs and the Devs fans, the only goal is in the season is to win the Cup and to be looking down at the Rangers. I agree. That would be nice, but imagine them getting the number 1 overall pick and having to see that flying across the river. So I agree to disagree. Of course, you want to be better than the Rangers every year, but not when you're this close to the bottom, because that could lead to them winning the draft lottery, and that sucks. So...
yeah,
I don't.
Anyone I hear about or hear from that's a Ranger fan that starts giving me any grief about the Devils being so bad, all I have to say is you're not making the playoffs either. So why are you talking to me?
Exactly.
They're not making it. Unfortunately, we're not making it as much as I would love to.
Yeah, but I mean, imagine making the playoffs with this kind of team right now. I mean, first of all, it'd be a miracle. So it might be interesting to watch. But I mean, you would automatically play Tampa Bay in the first round and get obliterated
again.
But it'd be way worse. It would be way worse this time.
Yeah, because we don't have Eddie Lack to possibly call up, which we should have done last year. After that performance we had against them mid-season, it would have been worth a shot. We had nothing else to lose. Snyder did play fantastic, so. But yeah, that's what you get. That's exactly what we would get in that position. We'd be playing Tampa, and it's just, they're going to be steamrolling whoever they play in the first round.
Well, I don't know. It's a scary thing because they could be cursed with the President Trophy curse. It seems like every team that wins as many games as they do, like Washington, San Jose, they usually lose in the first round. I was reading a stat like the last 2 teams to win as many games as Tampa Bay is heading towards. They lost in the first round. So it doesn't mean anything. The regular season, as soon as you hit the playoffs, we know this, and it sucks that we can't talk about it in a positive way. But as soon as the playoffs hit, everything is off the table. Like your regular season, you could win the President's Trophy. You could have, the MVP, the reigning MVP. It doesn't matter on your team. What matters is what happens in those 7 games. And it can everything could be different. You could get a team that just gets hot. You could get a goalie that just gets hot, and then you go on a run, and that's it. It's
a tournament.
Exactly.
You hit reset on whatever happened this season. You've worked your way to get into this tournament, and then once the tournament starts, it's anyone's game at that point. And like you said, teams get hot, teams go cold, players get hot, goalies get hot, players and goalies go cold. It's when you get to that tournament, that's all that matters. Is who's firing on all cylinders at the right time. So, and sometimes it's fair or not fair, but it's just what happens. So,
indeed.
So it appears we do have Nick Villano on as our guest tonight. Nick, you there?
I'm here. Sorry I'm a little late, but I'm here.
No worries. Nick. No worries, man. Nick, it's Shorts Guy. How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Feels like we haven't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah, you guys have been elusive. You guys have been hosting big events with big people. So us little people over here, we took a step back. We let you guys do the big people thing, but I'm back. Back
in the fold, man.
There you go. It's always good to have you on, Nick. So we were talking earlier about the draft, about possibly getting Karlsson. What do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the draft. So I was listening to you guys talk a little bit. You're talking about, obviously, Hughes, and I think it's Kaako, but I don't know. Nobody really knows. He'll let us know when he comes to North America. But,
yeah,
I mean, what I've been really delving into the past couple of days is who else? Who else is in this draft that'll be really good? I mean, we're talking about it like this draft has two people in it, like the NHL draft. And we think there's two people. That's what everybody said about the Nico and Nolan draft. And then Elias Peterson might be the best person out of it. I still think Nico is going to be better in the long run, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that you can get superstars outside of one or two, and they usually lie in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are still generational players that can be had. The difference between those players is there's usually a little rawness to them. There's usually a little risk you have to take with them because they don't have it all together yet. But if they put it all together and they get in the right system, they could be superstars in this league. That, just like the number 1 and number 2 picks. So the two I've really been kind of delving into so far, because these are the two that I want them to take if they get a 3 to 5 pick, is I always mess this name up. It's Bowen Byram. So it's Bowen Byram, and then it's Dylan Cousins. Dylan Cousins is a little to the point, so that one's a little easier. Bowen Byram's a defenseman. He's about average size. He's 6 foot, 6'1", depending on which website you look on. And he's somewhere in between 175 to 192 pounds, again, depending on which website you go on and whenever they weighed him. So he's not huge. And I know the Devils do have a few undersized centers, and, Will Butcher's not that big. Sammy Vatanen's not that big. And Ty Smith's not, huge yet. So you're kind of adding another guy who's kind of in that middle range. But, I mean, this guy is good. So this year in WHL, he has 26 goals. I already told you that he's a defenseman, right? He has 26 goals. He is basically like a better version of Ty Smith right now. So, and we all know how excited we are about Ty Smith and how he's going to make the NHL team next year. Byram can make the team next year as well. So that will give the Devils one of the youngest defenses with the highest upside in the entire league. This guy has, and I kid you not, this kid has Karlsson upside. I say upside. He is completely raw. And he does make a lot of mistakes when it comes to, I want to say positioning, but that's not the exact right term I'm looking for. He puts himself in a decent position, but he chases just a little bit. He chases the puck a little bit, and he kind of has that Miles Wood mentality where he takes a couple too many penalties because he just wants to add that physical presence to a game. I think that's a good thing in the long run, but he has to learn how to maneuver it to where he's not in the penalty box, because that doesn't help anybody. So that's Byram. And then there's Dylan Cousins, who I think is, number 2 worthy center soon. I don't know about next year. He might be a guy that needs another year in the. I wish he could go to the AHL because I think he's too good for juniors, but maybe would do better with another year not in the NHL. So he's kind of in the middle. But this kid could be the number 2 center forever behind Nico, or they could just kind of trade places, see which one fits better, kind of like what the Penguins do with Sid and Gino. But this kid can ball, and he's jumped up. He's taken this game up from really, really good to superstar level in I want to say Leicester, but I believe it's Leicester. He went from scoring 56 points last season to, I think he's up to 83 this season. So that's a huge jump. And he's just been rocketing up draft boards, similar to what Heischer did a couple years ago. He was really good. He was really good at the international tournaments. he's just great wherever he is, and he's not even on one of these powerhouse teams like Prince George or one of those. He was on one of these lesser teams, and he's just dominating. So I think that this could be really good. The other ones that I've researched, I'm a little more worried. These are the two that I really like that are outside of those top two. Obviously, we get the top two. We're not even talking about either of those two players because Kaako and Hughes are a lot better than these guys are right now and have a higher ceiling. But for guys in that top 5 range, I think those are the two that Devil fans really need to pay attention to.
So what about Cole Caulfield?
I mean, honestly, I haven't looked into him that much. I looked into the Nick kid who plays center, who's one of the top 5s, and I wasn't impressed. I haven't got to Caulfield yet. I heard a couple people talking about him, but I don't want to steer your viewers wrong. I'll have more on him in the next couple of weeks, but I don't want to say something just off the top of my head before I kind of really delve into these guys.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I totally respect that because that's something that we were alluding to earlier. Is once I feel like once we know, or at least for our aspect, where the Devils are going to be drafting, it's easier to kind of like dig into some of these players that you think are going to fall into their lap. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that they end up drafting the defenseman that you were just talking about. They bring up Ty Smith. Let's lead into this other question. What about Karlsson? Have you heard anything, or is there any rumors, or is there anything kind of like circulating around that he would go to the East? Would he stay in the West, or anything else like that?
Well, there haven't been rumors about specific areas of interest for Karlsson. All I know is that in January, they were going to negotiate something at the trade deadline. At the trade deadline, they were waiting a week. And then a week later, they said they were waiting until the offseason. I've heard this story before. Every time a superstar waits till the offseason, what do? These superstars love getting courted, and they love going city to city. And, we don't know Karlsson personally, obviously, so maybe that's not part of his gig. But if he wanted to stay in San Jose, a deal could be figured out, right? I would think that would be pretty, obviously there's salary cap implications, but this is the best defenseman in the world right now. If the Sharks were willing to pay his premium and what he's going to cost, especially last year they offered John Tavares $13 million a year. And I understand that things have changed and they've spent money on other people and they gave Evander Kane a big contract and, they've done some other things, but clearly they're willing to spend those gigantic dollars on this kid or on other players. So why wouldn't they want to spend it on this kid? So there's obviously something missing in the negotiations to where they keep they not only stop negotiating, they continue to leave the table. So at least there was an excuse earlier in the year. They could not give him that 8th year until after the trade deadline. And that 8th year is crucial because it gives the Sharks an advantage no matter what. Even if he gets the free agency, they still have that slight advantage because they could give him that 8th year. But if a team comes and puts all the chips on the table and it's like, here's $13 million a year for Erik Karlsson, or maybe it'll only take 11.5. But $11.5 million a year is a lot of money for these guys. And I think if the Devils come and they're like, Sharks are offering you 10, here's 11.5 for 7 years. So not only is he making up for that last year that he's going to lose, but he could go back on the open market in 7 years, get a $5 million contract, and now he's making more money than he would have before. And I think Erik Karlsson, even in 7 years from now, can make a $5 million contract.
Yeah, so that chance is there to sign him in the offseason too, because I was doing a little bit of reading up before on him, and it almost seems like he wants to see what's going to happen in the offseason, but everything at least pointing towards becoming a free agent, at least for a little bit, and seeing what's there. San Jose, like you said, you're correct. They're willing to spend the money. The Devils' advantage in this situation too, let's say we want to just sign him as a free agent, is we have cap room too. So we can bring him in, and we can bring him in at a decent amount. We just got to think also long term about making sure that Hall resigns, Nico's going to be taken care of, and that it doesn't strap us too bad either.
So here's the thing: is that the Devils have $45 million in cap space. Not this offseason, but the next one. $45 million. So you give 11 to Karlsson, that gives you 34. You give 10 to Hall, that gives you 24. And then, you give a lot of these restricted free agents, like Will Butcher really hurt himself. And I think that he went from a $4 million player that he's probably going to get like a 2-year, $2 million contract. A lot like Pavel Zacha, what is he going to get? He's going to get like $1 million. Maybe he'll get a teeny contract, 1.25. Like, show us what you get. They're going to re-sign him. He's going to be their fourth-line center. Him and McLeod are going to kind of trade places with third and fourth-line center. They're going to try them both out there once Jack leaves. That's the reality of the situation, which is why I really want them to draft a number 2 center in this year's draft, because then they'd have all 4 centers under the age of 23, and that would be insane and amazing. But I digress. Back to the point. This team has the money. They wouldn't even have to spend 2 of the cap to afford to re-sign Hall, re-sign Nico, sign Erik Karlsson, still sign a moderate free agent somewhere in the $4 million range, like 3-year, $4 million, something like that. I don't know who's going to go for what yet, because free agency is crazy, but somebody in that range, and say they want to bring back Brian Boyle, put him in that fourth line left wing spot. They still have all the money to do that and still have cap room, because we know that Ray Shero likes to have cap room to make those moves at the deadline if he needs to. So it makes sense for the Devils, obviously. And it does not harpen them in any way to re-sign Hall, sign Nico, sign Sammy, all these guys. Because I also think Sammy cost himself some money this year. He went from being a $6 million player to probably not a lot. He's probably like 5.5. But still, that extra $500,000 is, an entry-level player. So, and all these players are on entry-level contracts for the next couple of years. McLeod is on an entry-level contract for the next couple of years. Ty Smith is going to be on an entry-level contract for the next couple of years. We got players who are on these contracts, and then we have other players who haven't earned bigger contracts, which sounds like a negative at first, but might help. Like Joey Anderson, if Joey Anderson came out here and played like Blake Coleman did last year, then we might be in a little bit of trouble next year when his contract comes up, but he didn't. He was fine, maybe a little less than fine, but he got injured twice. He didn't play, when he was on the ice, he wasn't doing everything correctly, and then you have a couple other players who have prolonged it, and then if somebody like a Jesper Boquist waits another year before he comes over, which is a possibility because he signed that contract with a Swedish club, that, then that pushes that another year. And then you have the major wild card that is Seattle. And that's just, depending on who they take. And right now, whoever you ask, and this is probably just because this is the only contract that makes sense and is extended out that far, but everybody you ask is it's going to be Miles Wood. Maybe. I don't know.
Miles Wood that gets exposed?
Whoever you asked, the Athletic did a big article on it. They said Miles Wood was the person who was going to be taken. A couple other pieces, and everyone has Miles Wood because they think that the Devils aren't going to be able to not expose him. And at the same time, he's going to have a nice contract, and he's going to be a nice player for them to add to that roster, and he'll help them get to the cap floor. So he's making under $3 million a year, which is decent, but is also not not like a David Clarkson contract over here or anything like that.
Isn't it fun to spend other people's money and all this?
Oh yeah, I'd be a great billionaire. I'd spend money all day.
Dude, that's why I went out and bought Powerball tickets so I can buy some kind of defunct ECHL team or something like that.
Just build them up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, all right, that's the deal. Who owns the Chiefs? Who owns the Chiefs?
One of the best lines.
It's probably some like Canadian billionaire who owns like Canadian Apple.
So I have a quick question. In regards to the Seattle expansion draft, and I know it's a couple years away from it, but I don't know. I was reading somewhere that there would be a possibility that they would try to expose Corey Schneider as well, and that depends on like where he is and kind of like how much time is left on his contract. I mean, I don't even know if that makes sense or not. But what do you think of that?
They'll probably expose him, but they're not going to take him. I don't. Unless Corey plays like he's playing right now in 2 years, I don't. And that's hard to tell because I don't think he's going to get the bulk of the starts next year or the year after. So he's going to be a $6 million backup at that point.
Yeah, but at the same time though, not to say he's exactly like Fleury, but Fleury wasn't the man in Pittsburgh anymore. Vegas snapped him up, and Fleury had this resurgence of the old goaltender he used to be. And on top of that, it's also going back to the Pacific Northwest, where arguably Corey saw some of his best playing days. It may not be such a stretch. Just think of the geographically and what past precedence has been, because Seattle's going to be looking exactly what Vegas did, and they're going to want to build around a goaltender exactly like Vegas did. You would have to think that is, if not their top, on top of their agenda, at least, it's right up there with goaltenders going to be top.
Yeah, but do you want to know what I think is going to happen? And I have no knowledge of this. This is pure hyperbole, so please nobody write an article about this. But what I think is I think Montreal is going to expose Carey Price. So I think that's going to be kind of like their goalie resurgent project, because they're not going to want to pay that contract anymore. And they'll work out a trade where they'll eat like $2 million for the contract. So Seattle's paying them $8 million a year. It'll help them get to the cap for the first couple of years, and also give them that veteran presence. And that makes them an immediate legit player in that Pacific, kind of like Fleury did with Vegas. I don't think Schneider is that guy for them. I think there's other players that have been given bad contracts that are they're around the same age as Corey, but Corey in injury years is like 120. But he's just been so hurt the past couple of years, and they're bad injuries. That hip injury is bad. That core injury that he had is bad. Those are
the groin.
Hard to. Yeah, the groin is terrible. Those are hard to recover from injuries, and they kind of just stick with you. And looking at Brodeur, we remember the injuries that Brodeur had. He had the muscle in his arm. Those heal, and then they're done. Once you're healed, you're good. It's when you start to get the lower body injuries and things like that. But, the one major injury he had was to his arm, and he came back and he was fine because, the way your limbs heal, you're mostly, especially upper body and, chest and arms and shoulders, they heal. And then, especially for hockey players, you heal and you're fine. When it's a lower body, when it's the core, that kind of takes a little bit each time. It takes a little bit of greatness out of you. And I think Corey can still be a league average goalie in this league. I just think that's what we're kind of hoping for. And I don't know if Seattle is going to be willing to pay for that.
So, Nick, one of the things I also wanted to ask you, not to change gears, but to kind of stay on topic a little bit, is the backlash that Ray Shero has received from a lot of the fans via Twitter is a horrible thing to read sometimes. Social media in general is a horrible thing to read sometimes, or to go on to. when you're a fan of a team, especially in the position that they're in. Reassure everybody that it is okay to be patient, because this is a building process and there is a plan, and there seems to be some kind of method behind the madness that Ray Shero has. But please put these people's mind at ease, if you don't mind.
All right. I feel like I got to yell this from the rooftop. This was the plan. This was the plan. The plan was not to win the Stanley Cup this year. The plan was not to – I don't even think the plan was to make the playoffs this year. And you might say that's insanity, and that makes no sense. Okay, I understand. But last year we showed Taylor Hall that we can make the playoffs, which is crucial to getting him to resign, to show that it is possible to make the playoffs with this team. They saw the situation in goal and knew that we're in not a really good situation because Corey Schneider can't play anymore. This was before the season. This is the situation, though. They were in with Corey Schneider's coming off his injury, and last year he couldn't play until the playoffs when he was an all-star. And then now he got this major hip surgery, and he's not going to be back till the start of the season. Then we got Keith Kincaid, who is done at the end of the season. They knew they weren't going to resign him at the beginning of the season. There was no way he was coming back. I don't care how many emoji tweets he makes. He just wasn't. He wasn't part of the plan. And then we got these 4 prospect goalies who Ray Shero just keeps drafting these prospect goalies just to try one out, one after another. And then he's like, one of them is going to work. And honestly, it's not a bad thought process, because that's usually how it works. You just need enough cracks to bat. And then eventually you hit on one. They hit on the best prospect they got. Mackenzie Blackwood was the number 1 North American goalie prospect coming into that draft. Nobody needed a goalie in that draft. That's why he fell to the second round. So I forget the guy. Somebody took the European prospect in the first round, and then Mackenzie Blackwood fell to the second round, which is where we took him. And they're like, okay, well, they're all kind of iffy right now. Let's just roll this back one more time. Let's sign Eddie Lack to another 1-year contract. He can kind of teach the guys in Binghamton when he gets back to Binghamton. Let's sign Cam Johnson, kind of give him a shot, see what he's all about. And Mackenzie Blackwood ended up working out. If you had right now Mackenzie Blackwood and right now Corey Schneider with Taylor Hall at the beginning of the season, they don't lose as many games as they lost. That's just a fact. Mm-hmm. Now, second point, and that's what they were banking on. They were like, we're either going to make the playoffs because our goalies come to play, or we're not going to make the playoffs, and this is a really good draft to have a high pick in. Beyond that, look at the young players this team has. I've been a fan since I've been born, and I've never, ever seen the prospect list like Jesper Boquist, Ty Smith, Riley Walsh, Aaron Talbot, Jeremy Hellickson, Jeremy Davies. I'm sorry, it's Matthew Hellickson. There's too many names. There's prospects up and down this roster, or this, and then there's Binghamton, where they just don't have defensive prospects in Binghamton. All their defensive prospects are in the NCAA or in WHL, and so their defense kind of lets them down on a nightly basis. But they have, offensive prospects like Joey Anderson and Michael McLeod and Dave Sebastian, who's taken monstrous steps up. And that's just talking about prospects. That's not talking about the fact that Ray Shero just won every single trade he made at the deadline. Every single one. He made every single trade and won them. Keith Kincaid has not played a minute, 0 minutes, and they got a 5th-round pick for him. Yes, it's not this year, but they got something for a goalie who's never going to play a minute for that franchise. He got a 2nd-round pick for Brian Boyle, a 4th-line left wing. He got a 3rd-round pick and Connor Carrick for Ben Lovejoy. And then he got a 2nd-round pick and another pick for Marcus Johansson, who, guys, surprise, surprise, is hurt right now. And I really liked Marcus Johansson when he was here, but he is a liability. And he got 2 picks for him. So I could keep telling you again. I'll tell you one more. I'll tell you this. If Ray Shero does not make 1 signing this offseason, 0 signings, zilch, none, the Devils will still make the playoffs next year because they have much improved goaltending. They have a solidified starter who's going to be there in Blackwood. They have if Corey plays like he's playing right now, league average, they'll have one of the best backups in the game. I guess he'd make $6 million. That's neither here nor there. He's still one of the best backups in the game, if that's where he's going to be. And you have a above-average starter, Mackenzie Blackwood, who's going to be motivated every day to be Carter Hart. And that's with no signings, zero, which I don't think is going to happen, and I don't think should happen. But adding Ty Smith to this defense, re-signing all your restricted free agents, just keeping the roster intact, and all these kids that are right now are playing like terrible are gaining experience and going to watch every second of this NHL film and to see where they're making their mistakes and seeing where the speed of the game is kind of passing them by. Players like McLeod, players like Anderson, players like Pietila, if he's part of the plan, players like Rooney, if they want to bring back Agostino, all these players are going to be able to watch that film and be like, this is where I made this mistake. I can fix that mistake. And the John Hines and all them are going to sit with those players and be like, this is how you fix it. So, yes, Ray Shero, I still think, is one of the best GMs in the league because he is building this roster where it needs to be. He's building this roster like Chicago did. He's building this roster like Tampa did. He's building this roster like Pittsburgh did. Pittsburgh missed the playoffs for 5 straight years. Chicago missed the playoffs for 5 straight years. All these teams missed the playoffs for large chunks of time and then didn't immediately win a Stanley Cup. They kind of built their way. Well, Chicago kind of did immediately win the Stanley Cup, but the other two took their way. Chips. And Tampa's right now finally hitting that peak. It takes time. There's only one team that can win every year, and there's 31 of these teams. So you got to build the right way, and this is the right way.
Well, Nick, I don't think you could have said it any better. And I'll tell you what, you're getting accolades all up and down in our Facebook group on the feed because you just said it right. It's all about patience. And definitely last year making the playoffs was punching above our weight. And we just kind of happened to make it. I guarantee they weren't planning on making it because we just barely made it. And that's what everyone expected, but we definitely couldn't have said it any better. You said it perfectly. And our fans are all, yeah, seriously, drop the mic and go to bed because you know what? Our fans are giving you accolades, and I give you accolades, and I'm Beer Baron. I don't want to talk for you, but I guarantee that you give them the same accolades too.
Yeah, damn straight. So. Nick, honestly, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that was exactly to the point of, yeah, dude, drop the mic, go to bed. It's time to go.
Yeah, right, man.
All right. See you later, guys.
All right, Nick, thank you again. That was Nick Villano from Pucks and Pitchforks speaking better than we could. Yeah, speaking so much better than we could on the state of the team right now. I agree with him completely. It's going to be a process. It's going to take a while.
It's going to be painful at points too.
Oh, and it has been. I mean, 9 this past week against Calgary.
Yeah,
it's like,
dude.
As a goaltender, watching 9 goals go in is kind of like, oh.
I think
just feel for the guy.
Yeah, and I think the theme of this season has been like how many 2-goal or 2-0 leads have the Devils blown this year. I would love for somebody to maybe it could be Joe or maybe it could be one of our other buddies, Jake, who both were saying to chug my beer, and I did. But maybe they could look this up. But how many games the Devils had a 2-0 lead that they ended up blowing and losing? And it seemed like every time they went up 2-0, you're like, yeah, oh God, here we go again. Yeah, but
but it's not just that this season. That's just this season's issue. But it seems like in the last 3, possibly 4 seasons, the last 5 minutes of the game was terrible.
Have been a nightmare.
The last 5 minutes in the game have been terrible. The defense hasn't been there, and when your defense isn't there to help you out as a goaltender, you can only do so much. And if you don't if you let up a rebound and your defenseman isn't there to help you out, and second, third, and then fourth shot goes in, it's just an issue. And the last 5 minutes of games have been a problem. This season just seems to be the magic number is 2 up, and then it becomes, oh man, here we go. Like you said, it's going to be painful, and it has, and it will continue to be painful until they get it right. And then you're so correct about the social media and everyone on there crying. It's like
it is. It's rough, dude. And I mean, we just had somebody chime in on the Facebook group. Joseph said he's the first time watching the Devils hockey and seeing all these losses, but realizing that the players in the system are exciting. It's odd, but our farm has a lot of players that are going to be good. Dude, seriously, Joseph, if this is your first time, don't let this sour you. This is just a part of the process of like rebuilding a team. Hopefully you stick around and are a Devils fan for a very long time. But yeah, dude, social media, I'll jump on and if they win a game, it's like even when they win, people tear this team down, and I get it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not walking away with this, with a rainbow blasting out my butt. I'm still pissed off that they suck this year. It's not like it's fun to watch. You know how many games like we, especially recently where they're winning or they feel like they're, things are turning around. And look at that Rangers game.
Yeah,
we had our live event. They were up to they were up to nothing in that game. They were up to nothing in that game. We were jumping up and down. We were hollering, and the next thing you know, that just the wheels fall off and it went to hell. Yeah, exactly. But we still had fun. We did. We still had fun. You always have fun at a Let's Go Devils podcast live event. Brian just asked in the group, would you make changes to the coaching staff? He's thinking Nazardine out and Stevens to come back. As far as I would love to see Stevens come back, but for head coach, no, I don't change it because at least outwardly, all the players seem to love playing for John Hines. We spoke to Driver and we also spoke to Grant Marshall. They have even said that all the players love playing for John Hines. He seems to be the player's coach. I would, and he got that. He has that extension. He got it. I think he got it for a reason because the players just love playing for it. Playing for him. Sorry, not for it, but for him and for his system. I guess you could say for the it there. But he seems to be the guy that the franchise wants. He seems to be the guy that all the players wants to play for. So I think the coaching staff is there. It's just a matter of getting these, the right last couple pieces to the puzzle and having everything come together. Yeah, exactly. And give this coaching staff credit that the fact that they've been bringing up basically one kid after another. You know what I mean? If they had a consistent lineup the entire year, then you could judge them. Like, let's say if Taylor Hall was still playing, if Sammy Vatanen was playing the entire year, if Nico Hischier was playing right now,
Johansson wasn't hurt.
Exactly. If you go up and down the list, if the lineup stayed intact pretty much the entire year, and you weren't missing people for significant stretches of time, and the team was still this poor, then yeah, I'd say, you know what, maybe it's time we start flipping one of these getting rid of one of the coaches or looking at getting a new head coach or something like that. But the reality is this team has been, it's just been crazy. And the fact that they've been able to hold it together, and there's been guys that are still having career years, like Blake Coleman is kind of our shining bright spot of this team, in my opinion, is our penalty kill. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Blake Coleman's play. And I mean, credit to them to keep that together.
And you know what? Blake Coleman is a great example of that anti-tank mentality that both Grant and Bruce told us about, that the players are playing for themselves, or they're playing for the team, but they're also playing for those jobs. They want to keep those jobs. They want to keep playing in the best league in the world. Blake Coleman, we're having a terrible season. He is our bright spot. He's playing for his career still, and doing a real good job at proving why he should definitely continue to be here. Hopefully long term will be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of things that Travis Zajac, and we said this at the live event too, has had quietly such a great year, and he's been one of the most consistent Devils for a good amount of time. And a lot of people give him crap because he's not putting up huge numbers, and they're like, oh, he's a top line center. He should be doing this and doing that. No, he's doing exactly what he needs to do, and he's one of the best two-way centers in the league. He should, whatever. I could go up and stand up on a soapbox about that one for a while too. But my point being is, there's been a lot of bright spots in the season. And Stacy White, thank you for joining us. She's like, I love Coleman. She's been saying very positive things. That's the point. Is even if the season's terrible, just try to find things to hold on to, because there's things that you're building towards for next year and the next couple of years to come.
And you know what was probably one of the lowest spots that I saw of this season?
What's that?
The way Mikey McLeod tapes his stick. If our listeners haven't seen it, my friend Tommy posted this, and if you've been a long-time listener, you know Beer Baron loves Mikey McLeod.
Yes, indeed.
The way he tapes the end of his stick
like a savage
is a disaster. It's a disaster.
I think he tapes it with his feet.
And it's an example why you need veteran leadership. That was one of the worst things I've seen about this season is the way he tapes the end of his stick.
Hey,
I had to point that out.
I blindly love that kid, and I will just say I agree with you 100%. That is one of the worst things I've ever seen. If I meet him in person, I'll have a talking with him.
Yeah, just be like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, it looked like he taped it right before the national anthem was about to be sung. It's like he's like, "I need something." He just got it.
Somebody can make some tape. Just take it off his shin pads. I gotta use this.
Right. Just picking stuff up off the floor. Well, that's why you need veteran leadership.
Yeah, and you know what? I gotta say, I really like Agostino on his team. I can see him.
He was a good pickup.
Yeah, I could see him going forward with the team. I like Carrick has been a good addition to the team. Rooney has been great, and I'm only saying these things also because Joseph just said it. So I agree with you, Joseph. But those three players, yes, I agree. You know, like we said, there's a lot of bright spots. There's a lot of being in a situation that the Devils are in. They can bring up a lot of players. They can have a lot of guys get ice time that they normally wouldn't see. You know, you got Agostino up on the top line power play. You got him up on the top line. You have guys that are going to be playing major minutes that they normally wouldn't even have a chance to do. So,
and that was unfortunately going to be the telltale sign of when the season was out of reach for us. When the playoffs were out of reach, when the team realized that things were not going to go, when you started seeing the mass call-ups, you know, it is pretty much half of Binghamton up on our roster, which begs the question from me. So we pull up half of Binghamton. We're a third. Let's say a third. So then Binghamton's going to, in conjunction with that, have to pull up, a third of Adirondack's roster. So then what happens to Adirondack? Do they start? And we've kind of talked about this a little bit. So does Adirondack just start going around to all the local rinks and going, "What are you doing Saturday? You busy?"
Pretty much.
We got a contract for you to sign for next Saturday if you're in. Like,
what's below them? What's below Adirondack?
I would have to look what's below Adirondack in our system.
That's a really good question because once you start depleting one, you start pulling from another. So
yeah, and I know that one of my former players on my old high school team that I coached, he was, he kind of bounced around at lower levels, played in Europe a little bit, and then he wound up being in a situation where a team needed him for a weekend, and he basically signed like a weekend deal, and he was kind of always open to that prospect. But
that's awesome.
That's got to be about what Adirondack's got to do. Unless they're calling in all their prospects that they have in the college level, who at this point in the season, I remember when I was in college that there were a couple players that wound up going to get those tryouts and to basically become part of whatever that lowest division team is. So
it's just crazy to think about it. There's a couple guys that started in Adirondack this year that made it all the way up to the NHL level. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's pretty wild to think about. Like you said, you get some guys that are just getting called up and they're like, "Hey, here's your shot if you want to play lower minor level hockey." And they're like, "All right, I'll do it." And if you watch, I've seen God, if I can remember the name of it. I don't know if it was a documentary or if I was just watching a movie clip on some social media somewhere. But there's these guys talking about being minor league hockey players and the crap that they have to go through and, riding buses and, jumping and 5-6 guys getting in one car and driving from one rink to another and all these other crazy stories and the things that they have to do, but they do it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And some of those guys go from that to jumping on a personal, jet and flying with the team out to Calgary to get smacked around 9-4 or whatever the hell the final score was.
Yeah, which as much as that score is terrible and it sucks, that's why you put all that hard work, shoving 6 guys into a car. You know what? Even if you lose 9-0, you still got your chance in the NHL to show that all that effort and all that sacrifice was, hey, here it is. I did it. Now, whether or not they stay, I can't say I got a shift or two or minutes in the crease in the NHL. I know you can't. Producer Sam can't. I would love to. Even like a period would be fantastic. But all that hard work, and yeah, they lost 9-0 in Calgary, but some of those guys, may have got the look that they needed to say, hey, you know what? Next year, we're gonna have you up on the roster.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know.
I don't know. I think it was like the final score of that game was like 9-4 or something like that. But the point of that is just like there's so many games like this year where you get these guys, give them opportunity, and you hope that some of them are going to stick, and you hope that some of them are going to come up and you're going to be like, damn, like where did this guy come from? And you're like, wow, we had a diamond in the rough. And I guess like that's what this is. Like that's what this is just a big open tryout now, and see what happens from this point forward.
And unfortunately, we knew it was coming. And we knew that would be the beginning of the end for our season. But it's exactly it. It's we had the chance to talk to Bruce Driver about his first shift and Grant Marshall and all them, and it's all you need is that one chance. So anyway, I hear the music. Producer Sam's looking to get us off here for the night. Just a reminder, if you don't know, we got Washington on Tuesday at home, Boston on Thursday at home, and Arizona on Saturday at home. 3 home games.
And by the way, they're gonna announce the draft lottery position before the playoffs start. From what I understand, it's going to be April 9th.
9, yeah, I think I saw 9.
Double check that. Yeah,
I saw that real quick, and then wasn't able to do any more, looking deeper into it. I just didn't have time. But yeah, so
we'll have a better understanding of where we're going to be drafting sooner than later.
Yeah, at least we know that if we're in that bottom 5, we're going to be in that lottery, which I'm sure. I mean, we got Washington and Boston this weekend. Not to be a pessimist, but Washington and Boston, they're going to be tough. But again, a great test. If you're going to throw rookies out against top teams, that's a great test for the rookies. So that's my positive spin on that. If you have a lot of rookies, you're going to see what they can do under those high pressure situations against those really top teams. That's what you want to see. That's the X factor. You don't know until you call them up. And that's a positive look on this week. And even Arizona's not doing terribly either. So it's a good string of games coming up. Home games, whether win or lose, go to if anyone's going to the game, just have a good time.
Damn straight.
That's all I got to say. So, all right, Beer Baron, any last things before we close it out?
Not really. Just looking forward to, kind of seeing where we're going to end up. And, happy St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day. And I got to say, it feels weird to not be doing this event or not be doing this podcast with a room full of people.
I know. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was a ton of fun. If you missed it, we did 2 live events at Mother's Ale House. We're possibly got one last one in the works for the end of the season. So that's a to be determined. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Would be nice. So we're going to work on that. Hopefully we'll have that for the fans. If not, you'll find us here every Sunday here at 9 o'clock on the Let's Go Devils podcast. So until next time, happy St. Patrick's Day and let's go Devils.